Stephen, we'll bring you into this discussion. What do you think of the idea of letting Obamacare live for another year or so, go through that midterm election in 2018 with Obamacare so that the Democrats can't run on Trump care?
Well, I got to slow down to go fast here, Eric, because I'm not as smart as everybody else at this table. I try to represent like the guys that had to become actors from Long Island, okay? But in a post-9/11...
You and your three brothers, basically.
Sure, something, yes, Kennedy. But in a post-9/11 George W. Bush economy, et cetera, then comes Obamacare. This is going to take time. This is going to take time. The struggle between the left and the right about best is that what's unfortunate to me is all you continue to hear in the messaging from those that oppose President Trump is negative, 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 and that just keeps helping him and hurting them. So if it's got to go a year, Eric, it's got to go a year.
Got to go a year, Leo. I love playing the politics end of this and letting Obamacare fester for another year. Sorry, a lot of people, I get it, are going to pay a lot more, but then you don't lose the House in 2018 anymore because you keep tattooing the Democrats with Obamacare, and then you work on it after that.
See, Eric, that's a political strategy. If you wait a year, you sign the death warrant to the changing, repealing, and replacing Obamacare. If the Republican Senate do not get this passed this year, it will never get passed. You got a majority in the House, you got a majority in the Senate. For 6 years, Republicans talked about replacing Obamacare. And you're telling me with this majority they can't do it? That tells you that there's a tension and a fight within the Republican Party. The fundamental question is simply this. Does the Republicans believe in assisting people with health care with government assistance? That's the war that you have.
You're right, and there's a divide on the right. How much? Yes, but to what extent? How much assistance is too much? How much assistance is not enough?
And which people do you help? I mean, that is a fundamental question, because the problem with Obamacare is it seeks to help everyone with one-size-fits-all insurance. That is failing. There aren't enough healthy people in the system to prop it up. It's a Ponzi.
Okay, then you had your 6 years. Fix it. You got the majority. The fundamental problem, again, is this. Do Republicans believe, like Rand Paul and conservatives, in any government involvement? I will submit to you that President Trump wants it, and he's having problems with his own party. This is a Republican
Leo,
problem.
I think that's a very fair point. I think it demonstrates just how far apart the GOP is on it,
yes.
right? So you've got certain people that are more moderate. Their constituents, they just need it, quite frankly. They need some of this government assistance that you're talking about. But then you have the more conservative, the more Puritan part of the base, the Ted Cruz, the Rand Pauls, that are not going to be satisfied. They can't go to their constituents and say this Obama plus, Obama light, whatever you want to call it, is their answer to what I would submit as a 7-year promise that they've made to their American base as well.
Let me throw one thing at you. I want to get to the soundbite because this will blow your mind in a second. But, Stephen, if you're a Republican senator who may be against this bill, are you going to, do you want to be tattooed with this moniker? Oh, so you don't want this Republican bill, therefore you want Obamacare to stay?
Well, it's like I said, I'm going to keep it as blue-collar as I can in my mind. You know what I mean? It's a war. It's exactly like you just said.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. Now, either some members of this Republican Party are going to have to come back around because to avoid what you just said is the inevitable. You wait too long, it ain't going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
So I think you just have to... President Trump's the kind of guy that he's talking directly to the American people now. Okay. So it's on them. It's on Rand Paul and these other people to do something.
To you, if the president tables this and says, you know what, I think it was a mistake to move forward on this kind of first amongst the big policy challenges, let's do tax reform, is there a political cost to that?
I think there is, but not as great as it would be if you put the bill forward and premiums continue to rise and Democrats go into town halls all summer long prior to 2018 election going, look, this is worse than what we had for you. How can you not flip the House back? I think that's a bigger problem.
But premiums are going to continue to rise this year, 2018, by 20%, and that's the CBO score on this. But, you know, you make a good point, Stephen. This is a war. And what do you fight for in a war? You fight for freedom. So allow people to have freedom to get insurance across state lines. Allow people to make greater choices, to have limited insurance if that's what they want. And perhaps that's what some of those 15 million want by opting out of government-run health care.
I have the ultimate question. I want to get Eric and Kennedy on this. Should the government be involved in health care?
No.
See, there it is.
No, Kennedy,
Eric, can I get you on the record on this?
You can get me on the record.
Okay.
I think,
but that's different than asking if there should be violence.
Leo, this is a purely libertarian point of view that you just heard. No government is better in all forms.
Right.
I would say I'm somewhere in between purely libertarian and conservative, where some government, some assistance, but certainly not to the extent that we're giving away the House on this bill. I don't like this bill.
And Ebony would agree. That's called vague and being ambiguous.
No. My question, I'm going to let you get to it, Eric, but my question is, Kenny, you talked about the going across state lines, and a lot of people have said that is indeed the solution to bringing down the, or a solution. But it is mysteriously absent in both the House and the Senate's versions of these bills. Can someone on this panel tell me why?
Because it hurts the insurance companies.
Bill.
Because it hurts insurance companies.
No, that's why.
Because they have to compete. Yeah. When you compete, prices go down. When prices go down, their profit margins get skinnier. That's the true.
Why.
In all three forms of this, whether it's the ACA, the AHCA, or the Senate version, it's all crony capitalism. This is all a big entitlement, not for Americans, not those most in need, but for these gigantic insurance companies, and they are in a death spiral. They are desperate, and that's why you're seeing companies like Anthem saying in a desperate last stand, okay, we like this version, we'll stay in some of these exchanges.
I want to get to this, Kennedy, and Ebony, and the panel. Here's what. So in order for this to work, I think you need bipartisan support. I think you need Republicans and Democrats to come together. I'm not counting on it.
But it would be nice.
But it would be nice.
Yes.
When you listen to something like this, you realize that's asking a whole heck of a lot. Take a listen to this.
I know this is a sensitive issue, but I'm going to raise it. And that is that the horrible and unspeakable truth is that if this legislation were to pass, thousands of our fellow Americans every single year will die.
We do know that many more people, millions, hundreds of thousands of people will die if this bill passes.
1,000 to 2,000 people will die if you cut 750,000 people from Medicaid. So that means you're killing 1,000 to 2,000, killing them.
All right, Ebony,
that's rational.
How are we going to get to the middle here and fix this problem if we have Democrats? Pelosi saying hundreds of thousands of people will die if you go with the GOP plan.
Well, they obviously all read their DNC talking points memo this morning. Also, quite frankly, I think Senator Sanders would be better served worrying about his own legal and pending problems, quite frankly, and really shouldn't be the messenger on this.
Thousands of people, Bernie Sanders says. Pelosi says hundreds of thousands. Kennedy. Schumer says, hey, 1,000 to 2,000.
You know what? At least they're not employing any hyperbole at all. So no exaggeration, no hysteria. You know what the crazy thing is? We're all going to die. And they can't predict. There's no way, unless they're absolutely psychic and have a party line to heaven, they don't know who's going to die or when or how many people. I mean, that is such a fool's errand trying to quantify something that serious and grave.
They even dusted off that old commercial, throwing Granny off the cliff. They reran that again with Granny being tossed off the cliff. Granny's not going anywhere. Granny's not getting pulled off of health care.
Ebony's absolutely correct. These are talking points. The Democrats should sit on their hands, close their mouth, let the Republicans fight this among themselves, and that's what's happening today.
That is good political strategy. I would not argue with that political strategy, Leo. Your thoughts, Stephen, on the hyperbole here? Hundreds of thousands of people are going to die.
I mean, if pushing Granny off the cliff again isn't a sign of these folks having to kind of rehash some old videotape, just to try to make their point. Listen, the more they oppose this president, negatively bash him, try to create all kinds of news that's going to scare people, Americans now know the truth. They're seeing through it. In time, all of this forward motion by President Trump is going to come to fruition over time.
And Ebony, sometimes the saying, the phrase is when your opponent is digging themselves into a hole.
Just let them.
Just let them?
Just let them. Yeah, I think Leo's advice would be very well served right now. Democrats are doing more harm than good to themselves by coming out in this kind of desperate, obviously a pathetic, quite frankly, way. Let the GOP fight this internally. Hopefully they come up with something that's better for the American people. If they don't, then I think Stephen's right. It just won't get done, because if it doesn't get done, I think in the next year and a half, I think it's going to be very, very difficult, because that's been the criticism of Obama, right? I don't think he seriously took the advantage that he had that first 2 years to heart, and he paid, I think his presidency paid the price for it.
Yeah, and pushing it through unanimously, not with zero Republican votes in the House and the Senate. Your thoughts before we go? Ready to go?
No, I mean, it just shows how hyper-partisan this is. I don't think Democrats and Republicans will ever work together, not on health care.
But maybe on tax reform and maybe on infrastructure. Maybe we can only hope. All right.